Hoi allemaal. Een dagje eerder dan jullie gewend zijn. Het corona-verhaal. Vandaag heb ik er eentje uitgekozen van Roald Dahl. Jullie kennen hem van Charlie and the Chocolate Factory voornamelijk. En De Grote Vriendelijke Reus. Staat op Netflix trouwens, The Big Friendly Giant. Dus als je iets wil kijken waar je heel erg warm van wordt van binnen, moet je die kijken. Hij is echt heel leuk. Wij gaan nu lezen een van zijn korte verhalen die hij heeft geschreven voor volwassenen. En dat zijn altijd een beetje ondeugende verhalen. Sommige ook wel wreed, met veel geweld en moord. Maar deze voor een keer niet. En ik ga er verder niks over zeggen, want anders verklap ik alles. Hij heet Parson's Pleasure. Mr. Bogus stopped the car just short of the summit, got out and looked around. It was perfect. He could see for miles. Over on the right, he spotted a medium farmhouse. Beyond it was a larger one. There was a house that might be a Queen Anne. And there were two likely farms over on the left, 5 places in all. And then he drove to the other side of the hill, when he saw 6 more possibles, 5 farms and 1 big Georgian house. He ruled out the latter. It looked prosperous, and there was no point in calling in on the prosperous. Apart from the fact that he was at this moment disguised as a clergyman, was nothing very sinister about Cyril Bogus. By trade a dealer in antique furniture, with a shop in King's Road, Chelsea, Bogus had achieved a considerable reputation by producing unusual items with astonishing regularity. When asked where he got them, he would wink and murmur something about a little secret. Bogus's little secret was a result of something that had happened on a Sunday, nearly 9 years before, while he was driving in the country. The car had overheated and he had walked to a farmhouse to ask for a jug of water. While he was waiting for it, he glanced through the door and spotted a large oak armchair. The back panel was decorated by an inlay of the most delicate floral design, and the head of a duck was carved on either arm. Good God, he thought, this thing is late 17th century. He poked his head in further. There was another one on the other side of the fireplace. 2 chairs like that must be worth at least £1,000 up in London. When the woman of the house returned, Bogus asked if she would like to sell her chairs. They weren't for sale, she said, but just out of curiosity, how much would he give? They bargained for half an hour, and in the end, of course, Bogus got the chairs for less than 1/20th of their value. Returning to London in his station wagon, Bogus had an idea. If there was good stuff in one farmhouse, why not in others? On Sundays, why wouldn't he comb the countryside? The isolated places, the farmhouses, the dilapidated country mansions, those would be his target. But country folk are a suspicious lot. Perhaps it would be best if he didn't let them know he was a dealer. He could be the telephone man, the plumber, the gas inspector. He could even be a clergyman. Bogus ordered a large quantity of superior cards on which the following legend was engraved. The Reverend Cyril Winnington Bogus, President of the Society for the Preservation of Rare Furniture in association with the Victoria and Albert Museum. Now, from then on, every Sunday, he was going to be a nice old parson, travelling around on a labour of love for the Society, compiling an inventory of the treasures that lay hidden in a country home. The scheme worked. In fact, it became a lucrative business. And now it was another Sunday. Bogus parked some distance from the gates of his first house, the Queen Anne. He never liked his car to be seen until a deal was made. A dear old clergyman and a large station wagon never seemed quite right together. There was nothing of value in the house. At the next stop, no one was home. The third, a farmhouse, was back in the fields. It looked rambling and dirty. It didn't hold out much hope for it. 3 men were standing in the yard, When they caught sight of the small, pot-bellied man in his black suit and Parson's collar, they stopped talking and watched him suspiciously. The farm owner was a stumpy man with small, shifty eyes, whose name was Rummins. The tall youth beside him was his son Bert. The short man with the broad shoulders was Claude, a neighbour. "What exactly might you be wanting?" Rummins asked. Bogans explained at some length the aims and ideals of the Society for the Preservation of Rare Furniture. "We don't have any," said Rummins. "You're wasting your time." "Now, just a minute, sir," Bogans said, raising a finger. "The last man who said that to me was an old farmer down in Sussex, and when he finally let me into his house, you know what I found? A dirty-looking old chair in the kitchen that turned out to be worth £400. I showed him how to sell it, and he bought himself a new tractor with the money." Rummins shifted uneasily on his feet. "Well," he said, "there's no harm in you taking a look." He led the way into an exceedingly filthy living room. There it was. Bogus saw it at once and gasped. He stood staring for 10 seconds at least, not daring to believe what he saw before him. It couldn't be true. At that point, Bogus became aware of the three men watching him intently. They'd seen him gasp and stare. In a flash, Bogus staggered to the nearest chair and collapsed into it, breathing heavily. "What's the matter?" Claude asked. "Oh, there's nothing," he gasped. "I'll be all right in a minute." "I thought maybe you were looking at something," Rummins said. No, Bogans said. "It's just my heart. It happens every now and then. I'll be all right." He must have time to think, he told himself. "Take it gently, Bogans. Keep calm. These people may be ignorant, but they're not stupid. And if it really is true..." To a layman, what he had seen might not have appeared particularly impressive, covered as it was with dirty white paint. But it was a dealer's dream. Bogans knew that among the most coveted examples of 18th century English furniture are 3 pieces known as the Chippendale commodes. A trifle unsteadily, Bogans began to move around the room, examining the other furniture, one piece at a time. Apart from the commode, it was a very poor lot. "Nice oak table," he said. "Not old enough to be of any interest. This chest of drawers." Bogans walked casually past the commode. "Worth a few pounds, I dare say. A crude reproduction, I'm afraid." "Strong bit of furniture," Rummins said. "Some nice carving on it, too." "Machine carved," Bogans replied, bending down to examine the exquisite craftsmanship. He began to saunter off, frowning as though in deep thought. "You know what?" he said, looking back at the commode. "I've wanted a set of legs like something like that for a long time. I've got a table in my own home, and when I moved house, the movers damaged the legs. I'm very fond of that table. I keep my Bible and sermon notes on it." He paused, stroking his chin. "These legs on your chest of drawers could be cut off and fixed onto my table." "What you mean to say is you'd like to buy it," Rummins said. "Well, it might be a bit too much trouble. It's not worth it." "How much we're thinking of offering?" Rummins asked. "Not much, I'm afraid. You see, this is not a genuine antique." "I'm not so sure," Rummins said. "It's been in here over 20 years. I bought it at a manor house when the old squire died. But where's that old bill you once found at the back of one of the drawers?" "You mean this?" Bert lifted out a piece of folded yellowing paper from one of the drawers and carried it over to his father. "You can't tell me this writing ain't bloody old," Rummins said, holding the paper out to Bogus, whose arm was shaking as he took it. It was brittle and crackled lightly between his fingers. The writing was in long, sloping, copper-plate hand. Edward Montague, Esquire, debtor to thus Chippendale. A large mahogany commode table of exceeding fine wood, very rich carved, set upon fluted legs, with 2 neat-shaped long drawers in the middle part, and 2 ditto on each side, with rich cased brass handles and ornaments, the whole completely finished in the most exquisite taste. £87. Bogus was fighting to suppress his excitement. With this invoice, the value had climbed even higher. What in heaven's name would it fetch now? £12,000? 14? Maybe 15 or even 20? He tossed the paper contemptuously on the table and said quietly, "That's exactly what I thought. A Victorian reproduction." Simply the invoice that the seller gave to his client. "Listen, Parson," Rummins said. "How can you be so sure it's a fake? You haven't even seen underneath all that paint." "Has anyone got a knife?" asked Bogus. Claude produced a pocket knife. Working with apparent casualness, Bogans began chipping the paint off a small area on top of the commode. "Take a look." It was beautiful. A warm little patch of mahogany glowed like a topaz, which rich and dark with the true colour of its 200 years. "What's wrong with it?" Rummins asked. "It's processed. Without the slightest doubt, this wood has been processed with lime. That's what I use for mahogany, to give it that dark aged colour. Look closely. That touch of orange in among the dark red brown? It's the sign of lime." "How much would you give?" Rummins asked. Bogus looked at the commode, frowned, shrugged his shoulders. "Think £10 would be fair." £10? Rummins cried. "Oh, don't be ridiculous, Parson. Look at the bill. It tells you exactly what it cost. £87. Now it's antique, it's worth double." "If you'll pardon me, no, sir, it is not. It's a second-hand reproduction, but I'll tell you what. I'll go as high as £15. "Make it 50, Rummins said. "My dear man," Bogus said softly, "I only want the legs. The rest of it is firewood, that's all." "Make it 35, Rummins said. "I couldn't, sir, I couldn't. I'll make you one final offer, £20. "I'll take it," Rummins snapped. "Oh dear," Bogus said. "I shouldn't have started this." "We can't back out now, Parson. A deal's a deal." Yes, I know. Perhaps if I got my car, you gentlemen would be kind enough to help me load it." Bogus found it difficult not to break into a run. But clergymen never run. They walk slowly. "Walk slowly, Bogus. Keep calm, Bogus. There's no hurry now. The commode is yours." Back in the farmhouse, Rummins was saying, "Fancy him giving me £20 for a load of junk like this." "You did very nicely, Mr. Rummins," Claude told him. "You think he'll pay you?" "We don't put it in the car till he do." "And what if it won't go in the car?" Claude asked. "He'll just say to hell with it and drive off." Rummins paused to consider this alarming prospect. "I've got an idea," Claude went on. "He told us that it was only the legs he was wanting. So all we've got to do is cut him off, and then he'll be sure to go in the car. All we're doing is saving him the trouble of cutting them off when he gets home." "It's a bloody good idea," Rummins said, looking at the commode. Within a couple of minutes, Claude and Bert had carried the commode outside, and Claude went to work with the saw. When all the legs were severed, Bert arranged them carefully in a row. Claude stepped back to survey the results. "Just let me ask you one question, Mr. Rummins," he said slowly. "Even now, could you put that enormous thing into a car?" Not unless it was a van. Correct, Claude cried. And parsons don't have vans. All they've got usually is piddling little Morvis 8s or Austin 7s. The Lex is all he wants, Drummond said. If the rest won't go in, then he can leave it. He can't complain. He's got legs. "Ah, you know better than that," Mr. Drummond's Lord said patiently. "You know damn well he's going to start knocking the price if you don't get every single bit of this into the car. So why don't we give him his firewood now and be done with it?" "Fair enough," Drummond said. "But fetch the axe." It was hard work, and it took several minutes before Claude had the whole thing more or less smashed to pieces. "Tell you one thing," he said, straightening up, wiping his brow. "That was a bloody good carpenter put this job together, and I don't care what the parson says." "We're just in time," Robin called out. "Here he comes." Nou, ik vond hem leuk. Het was een van de eerste verhalen van Roald Dahl voor volwassenen in elk geval die ik las. En ik moet er altijd weer best wel om lachen. Om die mannen. Ik hoop dat jullie hem ook leuk vonden. En ik heb ook een linkje van YouTube in de beschrijving van de video gedaan. Want eind jaren 80, dat is echt dik lang geleden, is dit ook gefilmd. Met toen een sterrenkast. Het is best wel langzaam, maar wat ik er heel charmant aan dat filmpje vind, is dat Roald Dahl zelf de introductie doet. Dus dan kun je de auteur van al die kinderboeken waar we zo van houden, en ook dit fantastische verhaal, kunnen we zien en horen. En dat is natuurlijk altijd heel leuk. Ik wens je een hele fijne Pasen. En pak een boek, geniet ervan. En na de Pasen zien we elkaar weer terug.